Hello, hello, hello. I am so excited for today's episode, so much so that we've already been talking for about 20 minutes before we hit record. So I'm excited to have Byron and Margaret with me here today. Byron is a hardworking, loving husband and father who enjoys building things, music, and motorcycles. Margaret is a creative, dedicated wife and mother who enjoys reading, crocheting, and learning new things. Together, they co host the Beyond I Do podcast, where they share their 27-year marriage journey and tips on creating and maintaining a lasting relationship. Passionate about helping others, they recently published their first book, Unlocking Forever 10 Keys to a Successful Marriage Beyond I Do. They emphasize the importance of friendship and marriage, believing that while love is natural, maintaining a deep friendship takes effort and makes a marriage last. Yes, I 100% agree with that. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank
Thank
you.
you. We're excited to be here.
Me
Glad to be
too.
here.
I'm
Yes.
looking forward to having this conversation. So we're recording in April. This will probably drop in May, but today is 26 years from my and my husband's first date. So we're going out tonight to celebrate our first date anniversary. And relationships take work,
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, they do.
right?
They-
Absolutely.
So share with the listeners your journey of how you got to where you were to where you are today.
So we started out as friends.
It started out with a crush, but it wasn't on me.
Say that again.
It started out with a crush, and it
Oh, crush.
not on me.
It wasn't. I had a crush on his friend. That's how we met.
Yeah.
But but through that meeting, he and I became instant friends. Our friend groups kind of hung out together, and this is when we were teenagers. We were still in high school, and we would just kind of gravitate towards each other. Um, so for about 5.5 years, we were just friends. We were platonic friends. Um, Sometimes we were closer than others, depending on I went away to college for a while. He went away. He ended up with a girlfriend, a long-term girlfriend, and she wasn't a fan of our friendship.
Yeah. Yeah.
But after that time period, I moved back home. And when I moved back home, I reached out to my best friend and asked him to
Mhm.
help me move,
Yep.
and he did. And from that point on, we've been together, and it was literally from that point on. When I moved back home, we would hang out. I think we were both working
Yeah.
initially,
Hmm.
and we'd get off work, we'd hang out with each other. And that was in January of 97. And by December of 97, on the 13th, we got married. And on the 20th, we had our son.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Okay. Thank
1997 is the year it all
Yep. That's
changed.
it.
Nice. So you've been married for 27 years, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
What has surprised you most about love and partnership over time?
Mm.
Um, I think that what has surprised me is um of course we had to put effort into it,
Yeah.
but there's been an ease there
Mm,
because both of us want to be here. Um we had a very mature conversation at a very immature stage of life.
Mhm.
Um, we were we had just moved in together. I was pregnant. It was a few months before I had our son, and his ex popped back up, and we sat down and we decided, whether we were going to be together or whether we're going to be co-parents.
Mhm.
mm,
And so once we decided, okay, we're going to be together, we're going to try this, we're going to be a family.
Yeah.
At that point, I think both of us held that vow to each other, in a place where it was protected. And so throughout the years, we would have issues come up, but leaving was never like there was never a time when I thought if this continues to happen, I'm just going to leave.
Yeah.
So there was an ease with the decision to stay. Um, and it helped the connection that we had and that vow that we took and how we thought about it helped get through the bad times, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
The foundation, of course, was the friendship.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Her when we had that discussion, it was like, I had some feelings lingering on from my ex that, kind of she was trying to get in my head, basically. She saw that I was moving on, the typical old relationship stuff.
Sure.
So, once we had that conversation, I realized, I said, wait a minute, I can't, I fought long and hard to regain this friendship, and I want to keep it. And plus, I want to be in my child's life.
Mhm.
So I don't want to, be in that situation where I'm not in the house with my child. So I had to make a decision,
Right.
and, which was the best decision I ever made, because I had the wonderful experience of learning life with my friend,
I love that.
you
You know,
know,
my husband and I have had a conversation a few years ago
mm,
where we don't have children. We don't even have pets. Like there's nothing other than the two of us keeping us together.
right.
And very similar to your story, like we really, fundamentally, we like each other.
Mhm.
Um, and we had a conversation a few years ago of, we have these patterns that we continue to cycle in and out of, and we
Mm,
realized we could walk away. It's real easy to walk away, but we also recognize that the patterns weren't about the other person, they were our own. So we're just
Right.
going to like repeat the pattern, but now we got to do it with someone new.
Right.
yeah,
Like,
Right.
yeah,
we
yeah,
already like each other and know each
Right.
other. Let's
Right.
just keep doing this
Right.
together. And then if we then decide, all right, this still doesn't work, that's a
mm,
different conversation. But knowing this isn't about you, this is about me, and I need to look at the me part.
Absolutely. I think that's a big part of what's missing um, today with the negative stuff about relationships.
Yeah,
Everybody wants to point the finger at their partner without looking at themselves and taking
yeah,
responsibility for their and accountability for their own actions. Um, we just, I feel like we didn't have that luxury. I didn't know it was an option just to put everything on someone else and
right.
be blameless and
yeah,
and so that I think that's missing with a lot of some of the issues that we see with couples now.
Absolutely. It's so because I think the owning what's going on with you is vulnerability,
Right.
right? So that's the piece of looking at, oh, I feel scared, I feel threatened, I feel whatever I feel. I have to feel my feelings.
Mhm.
And
mm,
it's so much easier to say, you did this to me versus this makes me feel
Right.
yeah,
XYZ.
yes, exactly. And I think this the communication, the aspect of you're trying to learn to communicate with another and making decisions, not just for yourself, but you're making decisions for your partner as well.
Right.
You're coming together to make a decision.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people look at it still from that selfish point of view. It's like, well, this is what I want out of it. What do you want out of it? No, we're together. So we have to decide, what do we want out of it?
Right.
And sometimes that means I don't get my way.
Yeah.
And I had to be okay with that.
Right? That part of it kind of sucks a little
What do
bit,
you
right?
mean? No.
You both say that love is natural, but liking takes effort. And I really love that, right? But what does liking your spouse actually look like in your day to day?
Oh, it is. We text each other daily, have a great day. Um, Sometimes when I work day shift, I get up in the morning and I'm getting up before her. That looks like, maybe a kiss on the forehead before I leave, even though she's sleeping. Or it looks like, if I'm off and she's working, she gets up, she sends me a message by the time I get up. It looks like, hey, what are we doing when you get home? Hey, you want to go to the store with me? I'm going to Walmart. So
Yeah.
our typical trip to a Walmart is like grab a buggy, even though we're going for one thing, we go to the clearance aisle, see what's on clearance, and then we go by the tool section, the auto parts section for anything I might want to look at. We go to
Mhm.
the
Yarn
yarn,
so
see if
that I can
there's
touch the
anything we
yarn.
want to touch, and then we
Even
go
if you don't buy it, you're just
Even
touching
if I
it.
don't buy
and school supplies.
and the
We have
school
to go by the
supplies.
school supply
I
aisle.
definitely don't buy because I
Yeah.
don't need them, but I have to look and see.
See what's out there, of
We
course.
go get what we came to Walmart for.
And that's the thing, like the liking looks like we know that.
Yeah.
I know that when we're going in the store, we're gonna go buy the
Mm.
automotive part and we're gonna um when we get home, sometimes I have to get the yarn, and when we get home, we're on the couch watching TV.
Yeah.
I have my yarn, he has his iPad, and we're watching Dateline.
Yeah.
We like to be in each other's presence. We like to do things together, even if it's nothing special.
Mm.
Mm,
I know that there's a big thing about date night, and it's important to date, and that's important, but at the same time, it creates a level of pressure sometimes,
yeah,
especially, you know, there a lot of times women want the man um to plan these
Everything.
lavish, luxurious, romantic dates, and then they're disappointed if that doesn't happen. Men don't see romance in the same way that we do, and if you're not teaching him those things, he's not going to know those things. But at any rate, that date night can get very it can add pressure, whereas just hanging out, it doesn't, there's no pressure there. We just
right.
hang out. um we laugh a lot, we have our inside jokes, and so those are the types of things, the things that you do with your best friend, that's what we do together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um and we have friends other than each other, we have friends, but um my friends know he's my preferred company. And so when he has time and I have time, 9 times out of 10 we're spending that time together. um,
Yeah.
and that's what like looks like for
Mm.
us.
Yeah, no, it's very similar for me. We've been together 26 years, married 24, and I was at a retreat over the weekend, and I was talking to my husband I think it was Saturday morning or Friday morning, I don't remember what. And I remember getting on, I don't even know what was going on the call. We were FaceTiming and we were laughing, and I got off and I looked at one of the women and I said, find a partner that makes you laugh.
Yep.
And like
Yeah.
because we do silly things. Like I will just break out and make up a song about this pencil, right? And he
Yeah.
just looks at me like, this woman's crazy. I know
Right.
like he's intrigued, but he also is a little scared. And like there's that, okay, she's kind of cray cray and I like it. So I don't know if
Right.
he's more afraid that he likes it or, but there's entertainment value and and when we're driving each other crazy, we can have that conversation.
Right.
You were talking about date night. So I was coming home. It was a 5-hour drive for me by myself on Sunday. And I said, I'd really like to go somewhere, grab some dinner, maybe have a glass of wine, but I don't want to go to the places we always go to. So I was putting a lot of pressure on, not physically, but he was, we were talking a few times throughout the drive, and he couldn't come up with, and like, I knew in my head what I wanted, but because I had been doing all this work all weekend, I couldn't quite articulate it. So I was a little disappointed, and we ended up staying in and it was fine. And the next day we were talking about it. He was like, I was trying to make it perfect. I was like, it didn't
Hmm.
need to be perfect.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
I just needed you to do it. But
Right.
he's a perfectionist and I'm kind of a just get it doneer. Right.
Right.
And it needs to get done right.
Yeah.
So I was like, it didn't need, he's like, I don't know what that means, right? Like, so we laughed about that. I was like, yeah,
Right.
I just needed you to pick a place. And he's like, but like, I wanted it to be perfect for you. I wanted to make you happy. And I was like, the perfect wasn't what was making me happy, the just you doing it and I didn't have to, right? So even 26 years later, we still have to have those conversations.
We,
And isn't it isn't it good that you had the conversation? Like instead of being upset and holding all of that in or
Right.
telling someone else, all I wanted was this and he didn't do that. You had the conversation and he didn't have to read your mind so that next time he'll know, okay, I need to work on my issue is the perfectionism. So I need to work on not letting that get in the way
Yeah.
of doing these things that she's requesting.
And I tell you, one of the problems is, because you young ladies, I mean, wives, you sit at home, and I'm not saying all of you, but you watch TV, right? And Mr. McDreamy was on Grey's Anatomy. You forget he was a doctor, right? So on the
And
shows,
somebody was scripting his romantic
yeah,
Right,
scenes.
laying out this nice roses all over the bed.
right.
As soon as she walked in the door,
Are you
roses.
telling me you don't put
Like,
roses all over your bed,
yeah.
Byron, for Margaret?
Well, I'm just
He
saying,
better
like,
not because somebody have to
you
clean it
see
up.
all this stuff, and you're like, oh, that's the way it's got to be. And so in our heads, when we see it, it's like, that's how she wants.
Right,
Right.
And
right.
it's it creates a level of pressure for
Yeah.
guys, because if it's not perfect, then it doesn't go off well because it didn't work for her in the TV show.
Yeah.
That's where it comes in, learning your partner and learning what makes them happy. So
Mhm.
you say, well, it doesn't have to be perfect. She just wants me to do something. She wants me to make a decision,
Right.
Well, and I think it's also important for us to recognize that men and women are different,
Yes.
Yes.
right? And I teach a workshop called How to Manifest Your Partner.
Mhm.
And I started it off by, okay, women, right? Usually there's 90% women or 100% women, but sometimes there's men. And I started one off by saying, okay, women, this is what you want in a partner. And they were all like, yes. I was like, so you want to date, you want a girlfriend is what you want. And they all looked at me and I was like, men and women are wired differently.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there's, some societal stuff there,
Mhm.
right? But we're fundamentally, we just work differently,
Right. Right. Uh,
and years ago, I had a therapist say to me, I was disappointed year after year that my husband just wasn't doing anything for my birthday.
mhm.
If I told, and she's like, Francine, if you need him to do X, then you need to. I was like, no, he should just know. And from that, this is probably, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago. And from that point on, when I started taking we talked about this before we got on, I just threw myself a 60th birthday party, right? And because if I want something, having expect for anyone, partner or anyone, that they're going to do it for you, and the
Right.
way that it's created in your mind just
Right.
sets them up for failure and me up for disappointment.
Right. Right. I there was a social media post that I responded to earlier. The woman said that her husband was upset because he wanted sex and she didn't feel like it. Then she gave in, but she obviously wasn't into it, so he got upset and he stopped. And I said, "Well, it took me a while to learn that my husband it didn't want sex. He wanted sex with me.
Mm,
So the act of sex with me is different than just wanting, to do it and get it over with.
right,
That's intimacy for men. And if we say no and they don't have any context or understanding, that's rejection for them. That's
Mhm.
my wife doesn't want me.
Yeah.
right,
And someone said, well, it's a double standard because they can say no whenever they want to. It's not a double standard. You have to communicate with each other so that you understand. I had to understand, oh, he wants to be with me,
right.
Mhm.
not just he wants that the act of.
Yeah,
Because we're built differently. Um, and when he realized, oh, if I put in more effort with, and I don't even want to say put in more because he's always been very active with the kids and around the house, but there's an understanding that, okay, she's had a bad day. Let me make sure that
Mhm.
this is
Yeah.
taken care of and
Yeah.
that's taken care of. And it doesn't mean that I'll get it tonight, but it means that it makes it easier, other time.
right.
But that there has to be communication between your partner in order to
Yeah.
get to that place of understanding.
And I think a lot of times when men think of protection, they think of it from well, if an intruder comes in the house and I got to be their protector. But protection is also, if there's a level of stress in her life, I need to be able to eliminate that. So if the level of stress is I've worked all day, I've taken care of everybody else's children, now my kids need a bath. You know, you're home, you're off. Can you please give them a bath? You know, I'm going to give them a bath. So
Right.
less stress for her because she's doing it those nights that I'm working. So when I'm off, it's my turn. So it's just learning that, part of that protection is making things easy for her as well.
Yeah. And it sometimes it isn't the big things, right? Like my husband makes my coffee pretty much every morning. And when it doesn't get made, if he's run out, I'm like, oh, right? It just
Yep.
makes me sad, right? Like I gotta make my own coffee, but like that makes me feel cared for, right? My
Right.
love language is acts of service. So
Mm-hmm.
making me coffee is like, I mean, there's nothing better than that,
Right.
right?
Right.
Um, how would you say your friendship, or I'm assuming, I'm making an assumption that your friendship has evolved over the years because you've been parents, you've probably had career changes, you've had, I'm sure, challenges in your life. How has the friendship changed and what have you had to do to keep it strong?
I don't think it necessarily. Oh, well, the only change that happened is it just grew stronger,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Mm,
stronger because the challenges, sometimes those outside challenges. I think a lot of times what happens is when people get into these outside challenges, these things happen. They look at it from only their perspective. So, just like we told you before, we had the adoption situation. Well, we adopted a teenager. And that was the big no-no in the social services business. So we did it, and part of the drawback to adopting a teenager was the child ran away a lot.
mm,
So
yeah.
when the child ran away, we had to figure out what was going on. So we went through those emotions together, the sadness, the when she sat out the window waiting on the child to come down after I ran around the block, drove around the block to make sure she went out there walking, and then we would sit there together looking out of the window. We went through those emotions together. So, and then when the child finally got caught, they took her to YDC. Okay. So they told us, hey, this is what we're gonna have to do. She'll get out this date. So the fact that we adopted her, guess what? When she got out, even though she didn't want to be with us, who had to go pick her up? We did.
And we did it together.
So we went and go picked her up together and
We
cussed
laughed
and
and
complained
cried.
all the way
Yep.
there.
And we
Cried.
did
I
it
was
together.
like, I don't want to come get her. I don't want to go either, but we got to. They're gonna put us
Right.
in jail if we don't. So,
Yep.
going through those experiences together and talking to each other about how we felt about them,
Mm-hmm.
I think that strengthened us.
Mm,
And that's you know, when something good happens, you want the first person who you want to tell is
Exactly.
that, I want him to know that I did this or that this happened.
Mhm.
And he's my biggest cheerleader. Um, sometimes I sometimes my mouth is a little reckless and and I'll tell him, well, this happened and this is what I said, and he'll say, you probably could have
maybe you
said
shouldn't have said that.
that. And so we hold each other accountable. Um, there's nothing he doesn't know about me.
Mm,
And there's a
Mm.
level of trust and comfort there. And so, just like any other friendship, I want to share experiences with him. I want to learn new things and,
Yeah.
and see new places with him. And um, that excitement it helps create a closer connection.
Mhm.
Um, and we do those are things that we do in I don't want to say, well, a platonic type way,
Yeah.
sure.
so we've experienced grief together. We've
Yeah.
both lost our moms since we've been married. And for me, I was her only child. So I didn't have, siblings going through this
Right.
thing. So I only had him, and we had to support our
Mm.
kids through that.
Yeah.
That friendship and that that we have for each other, a lot of things that push couples away, that friendship is what held us together.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Up to a
we
degree where it was one point in time about 15 years ago. You know, we had did vacation. So her and a friend of hers went to Las Vegas together. I pouted because wait a minute, she going to Vegas without me?
It was it was my first time
Yeah, her
going.
first time going to Vegas
It
would
was
have been
my,
our first
what,
time.
my
Now we were
30th
going.
birthday.
Yeah, it was her 30th birthday. We were going like a month later, but it was just funny how I pouted and I was like, she going to Vegas.
Right.
I know she don't think I'm gonna do to sit home and think about her, which I did. you know.
But that was one of those moments where I wanted what I wanted and I was told no. And
Yeah.
it was before maturity set in
You made it
fully.
happen.
And I made it happen and I regretted it afterwards because I did feel bad. That was, I wanted to go. Well, when I said something, yeah, but I was gonna tell you. But so you live and learn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But we
but
we
missing
like
that
each other.
experience
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Was that's what I was hurt about. It wasn't about that she went. It was just like, I wanted that experience together. I wanted to be, to get off the plane for the first time and look around.
Right.
Your nose dried up for the first time. I wanted to be there to wipe it.
And Vegas is an experience.
Right. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
It's interesting. I've looked at, like, I love doing retreats, and sometimes there are retreats and really, like I went to a retreat in upstate New York. Like, that's not a big deal. But like there are retreats in Costa Rica, Arizona, and I'm like, I can't imagine doing that without my husband because we want to do those things together.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a lot of time. So this past weekend we had a moment
Yeah.
and I was upset with him. And when I expressed that I was upset with him, I felt like he dismissed me.
Mm,
So I stopped speaking to him.
Mhm. Yeah.
been there.
And that was what, Friday night?
Yep.
Saturday, I think I may have said 3 or 4 words to
Yeah.
him only when I had to. And it was finally Sunday when he broke down and said something.
Sunday evening, because
Right,
this time
because
both stubborn.
right.
Oh, she don't want to talk to me. I ain't got to talk to her. I'm
Uh,
gonna get busy. I'm gonna clean the laundry room.
yes, I was about to say that my laundry room
Like
is
I heard her.
phenomenal. It is phenomenal.
I'm gonna show her.
It's double the size now. So I was
So
like,
you got to stop talking to him more often.
I wonder
She
what
said,
next. I
"Stop
did.
talking to me."
If I don't talk to him for another day,
Right? I could have a new addition on the
Right.
house.
right.
Yeah.
But it was so hard.
Yeah.
It was so hard to not speak to him.
And look, still up there talking about what you gonna eat. You ate yet?
There were videos or memes that I sent to myself. It's like I'll send these to him when we're speaking again.
Yeah.
But I could not send those. So it was so difficult not speaking to him and not having that, those laughs and that.
Right.
And so that's something that I told him. I said, okay, we're gonna have to work on that because
Do you
that
know do you know what your attachment style is?
um yes and no. I couldn't tell you right off, but we've
Yeah.
done the quiz
So
before.
mine used to be an avoidant.
Mhm.
I didn't take it back then, but it's now my secondary. But I still have that, like, I shut down. Like when things go on, I shut down. And I will go, I used to go a week without talking to my husband, but it wasn't even necessarily that it wasn't a conscious choice. It was like I actually couldn't because that was a vulnerability thing. Like, oh, I'm hurt about this. But understanding that piece about myself, now I understand it differently. And when I shut down, I have to make conscious choices to say, hey, this is
Mhm.
what's going on. This is why I'm upset. This is what happened. But it's understanding myself in relationships so that I can.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's that stubbornness that will take a simple disagreement and turn into 2 weeks without speaking.
Right.
Well, during those 2 weeks, we're trying to get back at each other. So then feelings are hurt.
Mhm.
You did this, you said that, you went somewhere and left, and you didn't tell me you were gone for 3 hours. So
Yeah.
that creates the conflict that then you have to deal with later. You
Mhm.
just could have said, look, you hurt my feelings.
Right.
Right.
That'll make me feel. And I finally, Sunday evening, I was like, All right, she didn't even talk. She didn't
What's
talk
wrong with you?
again. What's wrong with
Like,
you?
I can't do this anymore. Just like, can we just get this out of the way?
Right.
Just
And it was
can't go in the next week.
it was hard. But like I said, that's a weak spot that we know, okay, we're gonna have to work on that because
Right.
um y- of course now we're getting older. Anything could have happened in those 2 days.
Right.
Now here's the
So
lesson. Here's the lesson that I learned. Okay. Now what happened was something that I had done before previously in the past.
Mm,
In my mind, I was like, what's the big deal? We done had this discussion before. But the dismissiveness was the big deal. So I had to learn, okay. Now, so taking the dismissiveness with her not speaking to me for the entire weekend almost. Now, okay, I need to be mindful of this, in the future. To not
right.
miss her, at least let her get it out before I interrupt her. And you know what I'm saying? So, that's how we learn sometimes.
and I learned that 2.5 days is a long time.
But it gets shit done around your house.
But
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now that, like I said, the laundry, it looks like a whole new room.
Right.
So I don't know, I'm a little bit split. Trying to figure out what I can get mad about next.
Right? Pick and choose your battles, but there's going to be one every couple
Right.
of months. So what inspired you to start the Beyond I Do podcast? And what's been the most rewarding part of doing it together?
Well, her and I both had been talking about, making a presence on social media. Uh, we both had TikTok, seen each other videos, and we saw couples doing things on TikTok. So we're like, what are we gonna do? Now I want to do something. And so just sitting there trying to figure it out. Um, then we talked about doing something separate and just helping each other. Like I work on the cars, so she was like, "Well, maybe I can record you working on cars." Then I was like, "Yeah, maybe I can record you work, doing your yarn and crocheting and
Thank
things
you.
like that." So it was that idea. So then I was watching the episode of Steve Harvey. Well, the TV show was off by this time, but it was on YouTube. I thought they had couples that had been married for more than 20 years, and the longest running couple had been married over 50 years. And so, they asked the question, how did you guys make it 50 years happily married? And, they said the typical, communication. So I was like, okay, well, what is communication? So the idea sparked. I said, okay, maybe we can get on to start a podcast and just talk about us being married. And when you listen to podcasts, everybody encourages just about to start a podcast. So I'm like,
Right.
we can do that. And so I approached her about it. I was like, hey, let's start a podcast to talk about us. I didn't think she was gonna want to do it at first. And then she was like, yeah, okay. So then, it took us about a year to actually, you know, work up the courage enough to say, okay, we're gonna do this thing. And when she hit the button, I was like, okay, it's on from there. Now, the great thing that I got out of it is the encouragement from people like yourself, listening to our story. They've encouraged us to write books. They've encouraged us to look into coaching. They've opened my eyes because she's the visionary and I'm just the worker. I'm the worker bee. She's the queen. You know what I'm saying? So she has this vision. I can't see it.
Mm,
So these having guests like yourself on and being on other people's shows have allowed to open my eyes to this whole other world that I didn't even know existed.
possibility.
You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Yeah.
So, things like that has helped us, and also it has helped us grow closer because there were things that we talked about during our podcast that from different perspectives. Like I thought about it from this perspective at that time, but now in this age, I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I was wrong about that, and now I see. There was we had this one incident where we had the chili. We told the chili story, and I had threw a whole pot of chili away, and she was mad and she was upset about it. She had just made it, and in my mind, I was like, I ain't finna apologize for no damn chili. at that time.
In
Why
your-
did you throw it away?
But he's
Well, I said it. I said,
so it was meal prep before meal prep was a
yeah,
thing.
that's
I was the
Okay.
person who ate chili, and I would make chili. I would make a pot on Sunday,
mm,
and then I would have that for lunch throughout the
Yep.
week.
yeah,
Been doing that for years. Yep. Yep.
So I had made a pot on Sunday. He didn't realize that it was a new pot because it was the same pot I was using. I'd use
Yeah.
the pot, I'd make the chili, and then wash it,
Yeah.
make more chili.
yeah,
And it was garbage day, and he just took the pot and emptied all of it out.
yep.
And I was so hurt that day. For whatever reason, I don't know if I didn't have lunch at work, but I was hungry, and all I was thinking was, I'm gonna have chili. I made chili yesterday. And I got there and it was gone, and I was so devastated. And when I said something to him, he was like, I didn't know, took it out in the garbage. And he just kept going. And I was like, that was new chili. I just made it. I didn't know. I just saw the same pot. And I said, well, are you gonna at least apologize? I'm not gonna apologize for some damn chili. So that did it. That did it. And I taught you, like, once I started speaking to him again, it's
Mm.
like all you had to do was say, I'm sorry. You didn't even have to mean it.
Right.
You
I
know,
just needed the words.
So
That's
if you
it.
mean it, right.
Still didn't apologize
Did
until
not.
later on.
Mhm.
But now,
Looking
Now you
back,
know.
for years
Yeah.
later, like that was stupid of me. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? No, we could have broke up our marriage over
we
Over
could,
potted chili.
because
Well, because our
know,
ego gets in the way, right?
yeah,
Our ego
exactly.
gets in the way. And then probably if I had to like look, you probably were in a shame storm of, oh shit, I hurt her. I did something, but you're not gonna admit that, right? Like that's
Right,
where our
right,
inner stuff
right.
starts to come
right.
out.
Exactly.
And for me, this was way before healing.
Right.
It's amazing that it didn't go any farther than it did.
Yeah.
Um, but so for me, in terms of podcast, um, like he said, going back through a lot of things and hearing his perspective and realizing that, oh, he felt that way too, or he thought that too.
Mm,
But then also we kind of fell into separate roles. He handles the editing and those types of things. I do the copy for the website and socials and the images. And it's become like having another child almost. We
Mhm.
put our
yep.
separate parts in, and we nurture it, and then we create this thing together. And that's been that's just been an exciting part for me,
I
is
love
that we're
that.
creating something together.
Yes.
What do you do when you're not on the same page? And I'm kind of asking you this, but also some advice to the listeners. So, what do you do when you're not on the same page? And then, how do you reconnect and realign? After the laundry room is done, what do you do to like reconnect and realign?
So I I can't deal with a lot of uncertainty.
Mm,
I'm still on that healing journey. And so we have to talk about things. Now, what I am learning is that in the past, I would give him his space to deal with things, but I needed something to help settle me. And we are seeing we're doing couples therapy, and I'm realizing that he'll go off and process things separately, and I don't do that. I process with him.
Verbal processor. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so I've had to learn that him doing that is not rejecting me. That's just
Right.
how he processes things. Um, we we are very open,
mm,
and communicating some things is difficult and it's hard. There are some hard conversations. If
Right.
you have a phone, send a text,
yep.
write it down.
Yep.
You have to get to a point where you can be uncomfortable with some of the stuff.
Mm,
Yeah.
And so in that situation this past weekend, when he asked me what was wrong and we started talking about it again, I had to get out of, like you said, that for me, that withdrawal, that's protection.
Yeah.
And I had to be vulnerable and trust that I'm going to tell him what's going on and he's going to listen this time. He's not going to dismiss me.
Right.
So there's a lot of vulnerability, a lot of trust, and a lot of openness.
Yeah.
And you have to be okay with, I might get hurt in this.
Yeah.
So for me, that's been the biggest thing is like I might get hurt.
Yeah, one of the things because I talk a lot about vulnerability in the work that I do and being uncomfortable, but one
Mm.
of the things I say to my clients all the time about vulnerability, it's the willingness to ask for your needs, regardless of whether or not the other person can actually fulfill it.
Right.
Right. So
Right,
vulnerability isn't like, I'm going to ask you for this and you're going to give it to me. It's like,
right,
it's just about, hey, I have to share. This is what I need. You
right,
can have your own boundaries or your own whatever around. I can't, that's great. I'm happy for you that you don't want to be dismissed, but I can't do that.
right,
Right. But
right,
you still took the chance and shared
right,
what was on your heart.
right,
And I
And
think that's sometimes the misconception about vulnerability, where people expect that I'm going to say this really vulnerable thing and then everything's going to be okay and I'm going to
right.
get what I need. And that isn't always the case.
Mm-mm,
When I was
mm-mm.
practicing vulnerability, I would say to my husband, I just need to say this one thing. I don't even need you to respond. I just have to say it. And he would just go,
yeah.
okay, because
Yeah.
I
I
needed that practice.
I have to tell him, I need to say this. I don't need you to fix anything.
Right. Yeah.
He wants to fix it. He wants
Right.
to start moving stuff and doing
Yep.
stuff. Look, I'm just telling you this.
And
Well,
you
and
know,
that goes back to how men and women are different, right? Men are
Mhm.
fixers, right?
part of the process of fixing stuff is, prime example is what I do a lot of car analogies on our podcast because I work on cars. But my daughter had a little well, her wheel bearings needed to be replaced on her car. So there are steps to having that problem fixed. You start off with jacking the car up, loosen the lug nuts, take the tire off, take the brake caliper off, the housing, take the rotor off, and then you've got these bolts behind the wheel bearing. You have to get that off. You have to there's so many steps you have to take. So sometimes processing for individuals like myself is exactly that. I can't give you an answer right now. And she knows I've never been able to give her an answer right
Right.
from the beginning. It's always, okay, I have to process what you said because she would ask me 5 or 6 questions. Okay, I'm still stuck on the second
Men
question.
can we took a workshop years ago. Men can't, but like, what do you want for dinner? Do you want Italian or Chinese? Men actually can't
Right.
work like that. And that was something like my husband and I will still joke. He's like, you just asked me 3 questions. Remember, I can't answer those three.
Right. And that's the thing. Like I've had to learn to pop like and whereas he takes a longer time to process things, I'm like constantly going.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We when I listen to videos, podcasts, audiobooks, I listen at either 1.5. Some things, if it's too slow, I'm up to double speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you even get
I
anything
need
from
regular
it?
speed. I can
Yeah.
do that.
That's
So
funny.
that's a reminder for me though. That's a concrete reminder that this is
Mm.
how fast I'm going. He needs me to give him time to process through
Right.
these things.
Right.
And so and oftentimes I think that for me, I'm an instant gratification, get to the end result person. And so I have to learn in a lot of areas that no, you need to
It's
enjoy the
just
journey. You
it's
need to,
just
Right.
like traveling. Okay. When we're
Right.
traveling, I drive most of the time, right? So when I drive, let's say we live about 2.5 hours away from Atlanta. Most time when we fly out of Atlanta because it's $200-300 more for us to fly out of our town. So when we're driving, you know, I hit the cruise control, I set my speed, I'm going in and out of traffic. Her, 89, 90 miles an hour. We got to get there. Bam. I'm looking at the speedometer like, is she gonna slow down at some point? But now when I'm driving, she's doing the same thing. But I don't verbalize mine. I'm just clutching my person. She,
Right. Oh my God, I love
she
it.
has to get there, you know what I'm
yeah.
saying? I'm just like, I'm just gonna take my time. I ain't trying to get no ticket. Doggone.
Oh my God, I could talk to the two of you forever. But
Fun
I,
fact.
I love to ask this last question to all of my guests. What is something you live by that you want to share with the listeners?
So my current mantra, I guess, is and it just went out of my head. The way you live the way you live your day is the way you live your life. And I know
I
wording
love
is
that.
off, but that was the first time I heard that. I was like, that's eye-opening. Each day is stacked up, and that's going to be the life you live. So right now, that's my focus, is trying to make sure that each day is worthy of the life that I want.
I love that. That's beautiful. And what about you, Byron?
And mine is, I've stated it time and time again, and I'll continue to state it: like over love.
What is it?
Like over love.
Like over love. Oh, I love that. I love
We
that.
love people in our lives. We love our mothers, we love our fathers, we love cousins, we love aunts. But that doesn't mean you want to live with your mom,
Right.
your cousins, aunts
Mhm,
24/7 and be around them all. So you have to like your partner
mhm.
Yeah.
in order for it to be a successful relationship. You
I
have to.
love that. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. As you know, I pull 3 oracle cards before we meet. I don't look at them. It's always fun because sometimes they are in alignment with the conversation that we have. So I have 3. I have left, center, and right. And I'm going to have you each choose one. So, Margaret, which one do you want?
Center.
Center. And Byron, which one are you going to get? And it can
Mm,
be the same, whatever intuitively comes to you.
I'll do right.
Right. Okay. So, center is take a reality check. And like that doesn't like when you first hear it, it sounds, but to me, that really feels like create your own reality,
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
right? Like you get to decide what your own reality is.
yes.
And to me, it falls right in line with the way you live
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
day is the way you live your life.
Right.
Yes.
You get to, yep.
That's what I constantly do, is reality check.
I love that. And Byron, yours is reveal what needs to be seen,
Oh,
Oh, yes.
right? Like
that's
not keeping it in the shadows. I love that.
Yeah,
And
this is
And for the listeners who chose left, practice gratitude. And I think that kind of embodies a lot of like just be grateful for everything in our lives,
everything.
yeah.
right?
Right.
Oh my gosh, it has been so fun talking to the two of you. This is the second time we've chatted. I was on your podcast, and I
Yes.
think we need to just like have a, I don't know, meet somewhere. What's in the middle of Georgia and Massachusetts left?
I'm always up for a trip, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
don't threaten
Come
me
to
with a good time.
Massachusetts.
Have it together on the weekend and just
Right. Don't threaten
sit
me with a
talk.
good time.
I told you that you already my
I know, I know.
definitely met before, so
Yeah, we're
So
gonna definitely have to we will definitely keep this going.
yes,
But
absolutely.
definitely,
thank
definitely.
you so much for being part of this conversation. For those of you listening, thank you for joining me today on this journey towards a more enlightened and fulfilling life. I really hope that today's episode has inspired you to embrace your inner wisdom, better understand your relationships, and navigate your path with a renewed sense of purpose. Remember, the transformation begins from within. Take a moment each day to connect with your higher self and trust that the universe is guiding you towards your highest good. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, do all the things, share it with others, and you can stay connected in our community. You're going to get all of Byron and Margaret's links will be in the show notes, along with, we didn't talk about it, but an offer that they have for you. You can get 50% off. I think it was your ebook, right?
Yeah.
And until next time, continue to shine your light and walk in peace and love. I'm Francine Terrell, and this has been FN Fridays with Francine. Byron and Margaret, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for
Thank you.
having
Thank you for
us.
having us.